The Moon Book by Gail Gibbons. As the sun sets at the end of each day, the sky becomes darker and darker. On many clear nights, our moon shines brightly in the night sky. Our moon is the brightest and biggest light in our night sky. It outshines all the stars and planets, which appear as small points of light. Some planets have many moons. Earth has one. A star burns gases that give off heat and light. The sun is a star. The moon reflects sunlight. It does not shine like a star. The moon revolves around Earth. Our moon looks big and bright because it is so close to Earth compared to the faraway stars and planets. It is about 238,900 miles, or 384,000 kilometers away. The moon is bright in the night sky because it reflects the sun's light. It is about 1/4 the size of Earth. It is made up of rock and dust. There is no air, no liquid water, or sign of life. The moon is about 2,200 miles, or 3,400 kilometers in diameter, and about 6,800 miles, or 10,900 kilometers around. Earth is about 8,000 miles, or 13,000 kilometers in diameter, and about 25,000 miles, or 40,000 kilometers around. Astronomers have discovered that the moon is 4.51 billion years old, just slightly younger than Earth. Something probably collided with Earth and tossed out a cloud of rock and debris. When orbiting around Earth, the rock and debris came together to form the moon. Astronomers are scientists who study things in space like planets, moons, and stars. An orbit is the path of one object around another. In ancient times, people thought the moon was a powerful god or goddess. The Romans called their moon goddess Diana. In Greece, the moon goddess was called Artemis, who rode through the sky in a silver chariot. Stories and legends were told about the shapes and shadows that show on the moon's surface. Some people said the moon showed a man's face, the man in the moon who was imprisoned there for stealing. Others told of moon demons living there. The moon is the Earth's only natural satellite. It takes about 1 month for the moon to travel around Earth. A satellite is an object orbiting around a larger one. The moon also spins only once as it orbits Earth. This causes the same side to always face our planet. 1 day on the moon lasts about 28 Earth days because the moon spins so slowly. The moon appears to change shape, but it doesn't. The different shapes we see are called phases of the moon. We are seeing different amounts of light being reflected on the moon. How much light we see depends on the positions of Earth, moon, and sun. Phases of the moon. New moon. During a new moon, the moon is almost directly between the sun and the Earth. The moon looks dark. We see no reflected light. Crescent moon. The moon is waxing when the lit surface we see is getting bigger. In a few days, a bit of the sunlit side of the moon shows. It forms a crescent. First quarter moon. When the moon is a quarter of its way around Earth, it is in its first quarter phase. We see it as half lit. It is sometimes called a half moon. Gibbous moon. When the moon is waxing between a first quarter moon and a full moon, it is called a gibbous moon. Full moon. About 2 weeks have passed since the new moon. Now the entire face of the moon we see shines. Gibbous Moon. The moon is waning when the lit surface we see is getting smaller. When the moon is waning between a full moon and a last quarter moon, it is a gibbous moon once again. Last quarter moon. When the moon is 3/4 of its way around Earth, it's in its last quarter phase. Again, we see it as half lit. It is sometimes called a half moon. Crescent Moon. Once again, we see a small sliver of moon shining in the sky. New Moon. It takes the moon about 1 month to go through its entire set of phases. People used to know the time of the month by watching the moon's phases. Solar Eclipse. As the moon orbits Earth, it passes between the sun and the Earth as a new moon. Sometimes the moon lines up just right and casts a shadow on Earth. This is called a solar eclipse. The moon's shadow falls on Earth. A solar eclipse can last up to 7½ minutes. Solar Eclipse Project. Here's how to make a sun projector to see a picture of a solar eclipse. Warning: never look directly at a solar eclipse. The sun's rays can hurt your eyes. Number 1. Poke a pin through the center of a piece of heavy paper that is a little bigger than this book. This is your projector. Number 2. Stand with your back to the sun. Hold the projector at your shoulder so the sunlight shines through the hole. Number 3. Hold another piece of heavy paper in your other hand. This is your screen. Number 4. Move both papers until an image of the eclipse appears on the screen. Lunar Eclipse. When the sun, Earth, and moon are exactly lined up, a lunar eclipse happens. As in a solar eclipse, the moon's orbit is not tilted. Earth blocks off the sunlight that usually lights up the moon. The moon has a reddish glow. Lunar comes from luna, the Latin word for moon. All stages of the lunar eclipse can take up to about 6 hours. The moon affects the oceans too. The moon's pull, called gravity, on the oceans is strong enough to cause tides. Tides are the daily rising and falling of the ocean's waters. A high tide happens about every 13 hours. This is because the moon takes about 25 hours to come back to the same place in the sky it was the night before. Tide differences vary around the world. A low tide happens about every 13 hours. Some night sky gazers and astronomers can get a close-up view of the moon by looking through binoculars. Others look through telescopes. Some huge telescopes are used at observatories. A close-up view of the moon's surface shows dark patches astronomers call Maria. Other areas are covered with craters, mountains, and valleys. The oldest identified moon crater is about 2 billion years old. For centuries, people have wanted to know more about our moon. In 1959, the Soviet spacecraft Luna 3 transmitted to Earth the first pictures of the far side, or back, of the moon. There aren't as many dark areas on that side as the side we see from Earth. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy made a commitment to put Americans on the moon before the end of the decade. At first, many American unmanned spacecraft were sent. Pictures were taken. Then Surveyor 1 landed on the moon in 1966. It sent back information about the moon's surface. The first manned orbit of the moon was made by Apollo 8 astronauts in 1968. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin of the Apollo 11 mission became the first men to walk on the moon. There were 5 more Apollo landings on the moon. The last one, Apollo 17, was in 1972. The astronauts did experiments and gathered samples. Astronomers and other scientists were able to learn more about the history and nature of our moon. On a clear night, when the moon is in the sky, gaze up at it. We are still learning more about our closest neighbor, the moon.